Thank you, Father Jones, Father Kelly, Father Durkee, all our fathers, my beloved brothers, and many honored guests. When I was in freshman theology, I learned from Dr. Boyle that babies are inherently selfish, seeking their own personal good with all the force they possess. When I heard this, I wasn't too surprised, as personally I had continued in seeking that until at least 7th or 8th grade. However, my vocation story is the story of finding that good outside myself, learning to love it, and eventually surrendering myself to it. So I should start at the beginning. I was born into what was going to be a large Catholic homeschooled family. I don't think I need to elaborate too much on that. As a little kid, I had some struggles with scrupulosity. However, unlike our good brother Jeff, I devoted most of my focus to trying to trick my guilty conscience and trying to work my way out of these sticky moral commands. Around 7th grade, two things happened that kind of woke me up. The first was I tried to prove to myself on a whim that God existed, and I was shocked to find that I didn't have an answer. The second one was I started to struggle with purity, which hurt my sense of self-sufficiency because it just seemed like I couldn't do it by myself. Eventually, I brought that to Father Craig, which opened the channel to get his advice for more things. Soon after that, I entered high school. I went to a public high school after being homeschooled my whole life, and found an outlet for all my insecurity in academics. I took my first college level class that freshman year, and by sophomore year I was taking college classes almost exclusively. I set goals for myself like over 100% in AP Stats, and then as the semester went on, if it seemed like it was too easy, I would like up the goals, in that case to 105%. Please laugh, that was a stupid thing to do. I ended up like often staying up until 1 or 2 a.m. Actually, most nights I was up till 1 or 2 a.m. studying. And it wasn't just studying, it was also my greatest year probably for sports, as I went to state in both cello and math team. Around this time, however, I started to have a thought that really terrified and unnerved me, and that was the worry that God might be calling me to be a priest. What if? What if he was calling me to be a seminary and give up all these hopes, these dreams, everything I was striving for in those long hours every night? So this thought terrified me, and eventually I brought it to Father Craig, thinking I probably knew what the answer was going to be. Father Craig surprised me by saying not to worry about it at all. It was something with God giving you a desire, but I was just glad to be off the hook. He recommended that I pray more and discern from there. I didn't pray more, but I did go on a retreat later that year. Coming back from the third holy hour one night, Father Craig included a lot of prayer. Coming back from the third holy hour one night, I had this sudden conviction that God was drawing me somehow. He wanted me, but it was me personally in a way that I had never experienced a relationship with him before. The draw was super strong. There was a lot of peace, and it completely unnerved me. It was something so foreign to what I'd been striving for in my academics that I thought, I really have to change the way I'm doing things. I'll start praying daily. So coming off a retreat, I was firmly resolved to pray every single day. That lasted about 2 weeks, and then 105% got in the way. So it would be on and off, on for 2 weeks with prayer, off for 2 weeks. That continued until about that summer. And then finally I made a resolution to do 5 minutes of spiritual reading a day and to stick to it. I stuck to that, and then as my junior year began, I added daily mass. The 5 minutes became 20, added spiritual reading, and a partial rosary. Halfway through that year, the question of discernment came up again. There was still fear, but this time there was also a lot of peace with it and a little bit of excitement. That didn't mean it was an easy question. I kind of tore myself apart, begging God to just tell me the answer so that I could decide from there. One night, however, I asked myself if I would be willing to go to seminary if that was what God was telling me to do. And I realized I couldn't give a yes to that question yet. After praying about it for 2 weeks, I finally had the peace to say, yes, God, if that's what you're asking me to do, I'll do it. Immediately after I decided that, I was struck with the conviction that in fact God was asking me to go to seminary, and that's why I wasn't able to stop thinking about it for the last month. So I resolved on it then and there, told my parents a little later. I finished junior year. I went to Mexico for 2 months that summer, living with some monks. Came back for fall of senior year, studied philosophy in Idaho for 3 months that spring, flew directly to Colorado, where I worked on a trail crew for 2 months, and then arrived at seminary without having registered for classes. Oops. Coming into seminary, my biggest worry was that it wouldn't be enough of a challenge. There's a term for that. It's spiritually naive. In the last 3 years, God has shown me over and over again that 105% is not always enough. But His grace is. Praised be Jesus Christ.